Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Crystal, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Good afternoon. Alexa, what's the time, please?
It's 2:27 p.m.
So, good afternoon, everybody. I've been at home for most of the day, and the drilling, I'm pleased to say, has stopped. They were digging the paving stones up down one of the bottom flats outside, and it was making a horrendous noise. It was awful, and it's been on and off all morning, and it's only really just finished this afternoon, just in time for the guy to come in upstairs. He won't have heard that noise, will he? Because he's been at work all day. So I'm not upset and I'm not angry. I'm just hot and overheated because I've had to shut all the windows. And although it is like murky outside and dull and dreary, it's very, very hot inside the building, especially when you do washing, you wash up and things like that. So it's really hot and muggy. So I've been writing on and off in my journal what happened yesterday and catching up, and I've written a quarter of what has happened today in my journal. Apart from my mother ringing, there's been no other person texting or phoning me today. I've not been pestered at all. So my mother rang at 10 past 10. I had a message from a mobile number: Crystal, join the Walk 100 Miles in August challenge to get your free t-shirt and support for people living with cancer. So that's all I've had today. That was at 9:27, and a call from my mum at 10 past 10. So no stupid flirt finder messages. I'm on my own again, and I feel fantastic. I do. I can't complain. I do suffer with a chronic pain condition, and sometimes I'm doped up with painkillers, and it makes me a bit dizzy and euphoric, as anybody will tell you who takes painkillers. You can get brain fog, and I do feel dizzy a lot of the time, and that's why I don't drink. I don't drink alcohol because you mustn't really mix alcohol with medication. So this afternoon at 10 to 2 I went out early. The men were still out there, but they were finishing up and getting ready to leave. So I opened my mailbox, and this is from Winchester Road, Feltham. This grey package is for me. I'm Crystal, and I got my mum a clothesline, 10 metres clothesline, and apparently it's like very strong. So if my mum hasn't got a clothesline by the time I get up to see her, which will be later this week, I'm not going up early this week, I have a gas engineer coming out to fix my key meter to a smart meter, and other things I've got to get done. So this is a 10 metre clothesline, and that was that. That's the mail for today. I do have other things coming, but as anyone knows, when you order stuff from China, it takes a long time to arrive. You know, things that come from China take a long time to travel, and it's in transit, I believe. And little things that I order actually come at times when I don't have much money and nothing, and I cheer my own self up, if you know what I mean. So I walked up the top of the road. There is still a guy outside Costa's cutting down the grass bits, and builders are still building. That should be finished up by the end of this year, and people will be moving into those over 55s flats. Can't say that I would like to because it's very noisy up that end of the road, and there was someone sounding like they were drilling, and it sounded like the dentist, and I hate the dentist. So it just sounded like a dentist drill when I was walking on the field. There was absolutely no annoyances, no people on there. I was happy listening to music because music makes me happy, and I thought I'm tired of filming. So I took a break from filming and I just enjoyed myself listening to music and concentrating on Max rather than taping the same old thing anyway. So it's been okay today, apart from drilling, and I can't go out anywhere. I haven't got pockets full of money. I haven't. You know, and I can't drive, so it's not as if I can hop in the car and go to Bluewater or hop in the car and go to Chatham or somewhere. I have to plan it, and I've also got health conditions. I have to make sure I've got my medication. I have to make sure I'm feeling well, and you know what I mean? And the weather is terrible. It's gone dark outside. It's like it's going to have bucket down and we're going to have a thunderstorm. You cannot do anything in this. Not outside you can't. If you've planned something indoors or going somewhere and staying under shelter, but I wouldn't plan like going away somewhere at the moment. It's absolutely bad weather for July. It really is. So I haven't even been out to the co-op. I don't really want to either. I've got everything I need in the flat. I'll probably sit down and watch Netflix or something. It's not, the weather's appalling. You can't even sit and have a picnic or sit on a bench. It's you know, at some point the sky is going to open up and you're going to get pissed on with rain. At some point today, this evening, it's going to bucket down, I can tell. So I think it started to drizzle already. It's dark and it's dreary. And I've got the lights on in my flat. Alexa, LBC radio.
LBC London from Global Player.
Something like 80,000 in the next few years. So this is something the Starmer administration know they really, really need to get hold of very, very quickly. And actually it's something, you know, the fact that he appointed James Timpson was a shock to everyone, but it's a really interesting appointment because he's a huge prison reformer, and actually in the last few months he did a media interview where he basically said that we're addicted to punishment, addicted to prison, and basically that only a third of people that are in prison should definitely be there. So Keir Starmer held a press conference over the weekend, and that was something I asked her, and do you agree with the comments made by your prisons minister?
Well, look, the prison minister has huge experience here and has invested a huge amount over many years in relation to prisons, and that's why I wanted to make that appointment. We do need to be clear about the way in which we use prisons. We need to get away from the fact that for so many people come out of prison, they're back in prison relatively quickly afterwards. That is a massive problem that we have in this country that we do need to break, and that's why I was very pleased to put James into post, someone who hasn't just talked the talk, has actually walked the walk for many years in this respect, and I think I was very pleased to make that appointment, very pleased to have spoken with him, you know, about the change that we can bring about.
Not quite answering my question on whether or not he agreed with the prisons minister there, but you know, there has even been some reporting the reason the Tories called the election when they did was because of prisons, and that's something I've been told by someone in the private sector as well.
They were afraid it would just collapse.
This is honestly a ticking time bomb, and you know, the Labour have to grasp hold of it very, very, very
and it's
quickly.
also on Sue Gray's list of potential sort of disasters happening early on, isn't it? It's interesting that projected figure of numbers, 114,000. It says a lot about how criminal justice how crime is being handled for a start, and the things that lead to crime, the causes of crime, to coin a Blairite term. It says a lot about that, doesn't it?
I think so. I mean, it's one of the justice reformers like James Timpson would basically say that short sentences, and actually indeed Alex Chalk, the former Justice Secretary, said short sentences don't work. But there are a few options the Labour government now has. They can, and one of the options they've been presented with is moving the automatic release date down from 50% to 40% for some sentences that wouldn't include things like sex crimes or terrorism and a few other things as well. But there are problems with every direction they go in. If they build more prisons, then they might not have enough staff, and obviously, as Keir Starmer said, you can't build prisons overnight. If they do this automatic early release scheme, it puts pressure on the probation service. So it's a really, really tricky topic that they have inherited, and they know that
Layered, isn't it? It's very layered. It's not about, there you go, there's your tag, there's your community service to do when you come out. It's a lot more layered than that, isn't it?
It's a lot more layered, and also it's one of those things. I mean, the prison population has doubled in the last 30 years, and something that happened about 30 years ago was when Michael Howard was Home Secretary, and he made this speech saying prison works. And there has been a lot of pressure on politicians to land this line of prison works, we're going to be tough on crime, and actually it's going to be quite difficult, I think, and it was quite difficult for Alex Chalk to slightly try and change that rhetoric, and because these are people who are in prison for a reason, and it's difficult for politicians to grab hold of that and try and change that. But I wonder whether, with the appointment of James Timpson, that is something that Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, is trying to do.
And the work that he's done over the years, which Sir Keir Starmer alluded to in his answer to your question at that press conference, I mean, it's on record. It's there for people to see. It's there for people to assess. He and the people who work with him in, there are many charities and organisations that work inside prisons doing brilliant work. They really know it in a way that the rest of us don't, because there's a tendency in this country for, including journalists, just to leave prisons. They're over there. There are bad people in there. We're not giving them a great deal of energy, and that's a mistake, isn't it?
I think it's really difficult, and also it's really difficult from a funding point of view, because if you're saying to the public, we're going to put more funding into this rather than NHS or education, that's a really, really difficult argument to make. There is a very clear argument to make that if you invest in rehabilitation and that brings down reoffending rates, then that is good for everyone, but it is a difficult argument to make, especially if you're putting more funding into it when there isn't a lot of funding to go around, and that's a department that has had lower funding in real terms over the last 14 years.
Thanks very much indeed, Aggie. Good to have you in the studio, Aggie Chambray, LBC's political correspondent. Let me get back to your calls now on the EU, Europe, and our relationship with Europe. David Lammy, it looks as though he's using security in that broader sense of the term security, not just defence, but including immigration, health, energy policies, as a kind of way in to reframing our relationship with the EU. I wonder the degree to which you trust Labour on that, the new Labour government. David in Huntingdon, hello.
Hello, Sheila. Yeah, what I've got to say, that we have to go back into the, not into the EU, but have a free trade agreement. I mean, the damage that has done over since we lost the ability to move freely with goods, imports and exports, has done so much damage to the economy. I mean, to the extent that it's, they're saying it's 5% GDP. If the Labour government had the courage, they should immediately start negotiations, and that would immediately have the effect of improving the economy. However long that might take them, but they need to have the courage to negotiate.
But a free trade agreement, well, what would that amount to?
Well,
do you think?
What, in terms of, it's millions a year.
No, I mean, what would it mean? What would it involve? It would take a long time.
Rules, I'm afraid. If you want to be in the club, you have to play by rules. It does mean free movement of people, and that affects us going there as well as people coming to us. I don't think that's a problem, personally, and I think people realise they were duped. When we had to vote to leave or remain, they were duped by what effect it would have on the country, and it is too big a cost to the economy, having not got free trade.
What do you make of arguments about the future of the EU? So the next decade, say, in the EU.
I don't think it matters. What matters is that we have a free trade agreement that allows us freedom. The cost of importing and exporting is phenomenal now that we don't have a free trade agreement.
But if we do, but the cost of getting that free trade agreement might be politically sensitive.
I think people realise now that Brexit was a bad thing, and I think people are more relaxed about that now. And I think if they understood the benefits of what we've lost, they would be more relaxed about it.
Okay, well, let's test your theory, David. Thank you. David in Huntington. William